consequence of Shaun King being eliminated. And I know that that caused a lot of stir. Shaun King has a lot of detractors. Shaun King has a lot of critics. And whether you agree or disagree with him or not, I think anyone who is concerned with Palestinian dignity, self-determination, and freedom should be opposed to any form of censorship. So one thing I've noted since the suspension of Shaun King's account is momentum declining. Right, Shaun King was really effective at galvanizing voices, amplifying voices, and getting people moved in action. So tied to a second factor tied to media and meta censorship is, look, there's a lot of voices online who are creating boundaries, creating litmus tests as to who can and can't speak on Palestine. Some people are saying, hey, we need to center Palestinian voices. I agree. We should center Palestinian voices, specifically Palestinian voices on the ground in Gaza. Right? People like Bassam, people like Mu'taz, people like Wael Dahdouh, people like Salah. Their voices should be centered for a range of reasons. Number one, because they're on the ground. And number two is because they're providing us with the real-time footage, the real-time narratives, the real-time testimony that we have to showcase and center here. But beyond that, look, Palestine is one of those issues that everybody and anybody should be speaking up on, right? It's not an issue where we need to minimize and limit the number of voices speaking up on Palestine and Gaza. It should be maximized and optimized. And even beyond that, right, any issue, whether it's this issue, whether it's another issue, whether it's Congo, whether it's Sudan, whether it's Uyghur Muslims, whether it's what's happening in Yemen, these are issues of universal human rights and social justice concern. Anybody and everybody. You don't got to be Palestinian. You don't got to be Muslim. You don't got to be Arab. You don't got to be anything. You just have to be a human being concerned with social justice and human rights to speak up on this issue. So another reason we're seeing slowed momentum, slowed engagement, and slowed coverage is that these voices who are saying that only Palestinians should be able to speak on this issue are really dissuading and pushing away other people who aren't Palestinian to speak up on this issue. We have to resist that. We have to resist that. We have to fight against that, right? Anybody and everybody should be speaking up. I was attacked by these people. Imam Omar Suleiman was attacked. Shaun King was attacked. Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't care what these people say. I don't really think about it. Some of them are really young. I've read books that are older than some of these voices. Like I posted yesterday, you shouldn't follow people. I don't want you to follow me because you want to follow Khaled Beydoun. You should follow ideas. You should follow principles. You should follow individuals who are trying to educate you, right? This is not about individual followings. This is not about vanity projects. True intellectual projects aren't vanity projects. Don't follow me because you like me. You know, follow me because you gain some sort of educational value from my account. So those voices, I think, are doing an injustice, are doing a disservice to maximizing and amplifying the issue, right? The crisis that's taking place on the ground. And that's a second reason why attention and coverage and engagement on Palestine has been on the decline over the course of these last several weeks. These people who are sketching ideological and identity-based litmus tests as to who can speak and who cannot speak are actually, in my opinion, being destructive and counterproductive to the movement. So we have to sort of resist those individuals as well and kind of like, take what they say for face value. Third thing is this, is fatigue and engagement, right? It's a new year. It's 2024. We're moving away from the beginning of this crisis. People, sad to say, but especially in the West, especially in the United States, people have a short attention span, right? People have, the media cycle is really rapid. It's vicious and it's furious. We move on from one issue to the next. And tied to censorship, tied to bullying, tied to all these individuals who are suppressing voices, we have to keep on speaking up, right? We have to keep on amplifying what's going on. We have to keep the endurance up for talking about what's happening in Gaza, right? Making it focal, talking about, journalists who are being killed, talking about hospitals that are being bombed, talking about the fact that humanitarian assistance can't come into Gaza. Yesterday I was walking down the street and somebody stopped me, recognized me, and they thanked me. They're like, Khaled, thank you so much for keeping your voice up on Gaza. this deep into the crisis. I was taken aback and I said, hey, you don't got to thank me. There's nothing to thank. This is an obligation. This is an obligation, right? It's an obligation for all of us to keep on speaking up. This is work that we do because we're committed to the fact that Palestinians deserve self-determination, they deserve dignity, and we need a ceasefire. So all of us have to continue that energy and keep our endurance up, especially now that we're traveling and transitioning into, I think, a more critical phase than any. One thing that I've learned during these 96 days is when Israel and the United States know that people's energy and attention is declining, that's when they push up, that's when they intensify the violence, right? Because one thing you have to understand is our voices, our attention, our engagement functions as a buffer. Once that buffer is thin and eliminated, that will enable Israel and the United States to bomb and attack with impunity. So we have to keep our energy up and continue moving forward and resist the meta suppression, resist the fact that we've lost really important voices like Sean King. Inshallah, God willing, his account will be restored. I know the legal team and the lawyers helping Sean King, hopefully trying to get his account restored. I'd keep on centering Palestinian voices, especially those voices on the ground in Gaza. Those are the voices we need to amplify. Those are the voices that we need to push. I talk to some of these journalists as frequent as I can, send them notes of inspiration. They send me things to post. So continue to do that. Okay, third thing I want to talk about is what's happening with the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. Some positive news that South Africa, which knows a thing or two about apartheid and segregation, as we know through their murky and tainted history, has brought forth a case against Israel for genocide. And that case has been filed in the ICJ. We've seen a lot of momentum with parliamentarians from places like Ireland, Belgium, countries across the world, signing on and endorsing that case. It's a very positive development that case has been filed. Hopefully it's heard. Hopefully it's given justice in the coming weeks to sort of make this case and amplify and mount the case for genocide against Netanyahu and the state of Israel for what they've done for 96 days. So we're waiting for the ICJ to make a decision as to the case filing. It's been sort of minimized and dismissed by Blinken and Biden, naturally and understandably so. They've been part of this genocide. So a positive ruling against the state of Israel is also a positive ruling against the United States for genocide. So naturally they're going to resist it. I'll keep you guys updated, inshallah, by way of posts and also by way of lives. Again, hopefully this is not disabled. My page has been heavily cracked down upon. I had something like 500-600 posts removed, especially my posts in Yemen, and I'll get to that in a bit. I want to talk about Yemen really closely in a bit because it's very important. So I'll keep tabs on the ICJ. Again, hopefully we get some good legal momentum on that front, that we continue to see the case for genocide made and more allies in the form of politicians, heads of state, but also national governments signing on for the case for genocide in the ICJ. I'm just hoping at the end of all of this, once a ceasefire is finally achieved, that Netanyahu and his handlers and his acolytes and those supporting the genocide get their day in court and are justly punished. If the United Nations hasn't been able to achieve a ceasefire because of the United States, hopefully the ICJ can get some sort of at least a symbolic or practical ruling that there was in fact a genocide that's unfolded in Gaza. We all know that there has been. It meets the definitional metrics, meets the numerical metrics, meets all the elements of a genocide. There's clearly intent. The number of dead demonstrates that. The number of displaced, 90% of Gaza is displaced as of now. Also, the very brazen and racist and anti-Palestinian rhetoric coming from the likes of Netanyahu, Smotrich, Benny Ver, the leadership of that regime demonstrates an intent, a malice to bring about a genocide. So hopefully the court, the ICJ, does the right thing. I'm suspicious and skeptical, but inshallah, we can pray and hope that a positive ruling comes about. Okay, the last thing, so two more things actually I want to talk about. Number one, Lebanon, right? We've seen in Lebanon how violence has escalated. There's been strategic strikes against Hezbollah. 4 Hezbollah leaders were killed. Hezbollah has responded with bombs in northern Israel, so that's intensifying. So it feels like a war in Lebanon is likely, more likely than ever. Again, we have large numbers of Lebanese from the south, which has been bombed with white phosphorus and other bombs in recent weeks, travel north to northern cities like Beirut, Saida, and beyond. So keeping an eye on what happens over there. But it seems after that bomb last week in Beirut, where a Hamas leader was assassinated, and now you got Israeli air jets flying over Beirut, the capital city in Lebanon, almost on a daily basis, menacing the population. And again, Hezbollah responding with bombs in northern Israel. So it's a tit-for-tat situation that a war, a more intensified, full-fledged war is possible. So we'll keep an eye on that. And finally, I want to talk about Yemen, right? You guys have seen in the last several weeks that I'm fundraising for Yemen. And the reason I'm doing that is because Yemen has gotten a lot of media attention in the last several months because of the ship blockade that they instituted and are enforcing in the Red Sea, which has had a tremendous economic impact on the state of Israel and has had an impact on the genocide, right? And leadership in Yemen has been staunch in saying that they're not going to stop this blockade until the genocide in Gaza stops. They've been vehement. Yesterday you had 21 drones launched by Yemen towards American and French warships being bombed and intercepted. 4 Yemeni ships were also shot, where you had, I think, 12 to 15 Yemenis being killed by the United States last week. So the reason I bring this up, 2 reasons. The first reason is Yemen did not get a lot of attention in terms of its own crisis up until this crisis in Gaza, right? But it's sad, it's unfortunate, because if you know anything about recent Yemeni history, over 9 years, Yemen has been engulfed in its own war. A war that has claimed the lives of 300,000 people, a war that has left 55% of the Yemeni people struggling with famine, which is intensified. It's actually, this famine and the number of starving children has gone up since this crisis has began. Another reason why that is you guys might have read and saw from a post that I put up, that the United Nations World Food Program cut their aid to Yemen. So the fact that Yemen was struggling through war, Yemenis are going through a destructive famine. 55% of children in Yemen are food insecure, and the United Nations still decides to cut their food aid in a form of punitive and collective punishment, demonstrates that they're trying to punish the entire Yemeni population as a consequence of the political position that the Houthis have taken. So as a response to that, I'm like, look, if the UN's not going to help these people, I'm going to try to help them as best I can. I launched this fundraiser to help the Yemeni people, to provide food, to provide emergency aid packets, to provide medical aid, but especially food and water to children, because the UN eliminated their support. I have many Yemeni friends. I know people on the ground in Yemen. I know families that have been hard hit by what's taking place. So I want to push you all to please donate to Yemen. Don't just laud them. Don't just congratulate them. Don't just say, hey, Yemenis are great friends, demonstrating solidarities. Help the Yemeni people. They need help. Yemen, as you may or may not know, is the poorest country in the region. It is struggling with economically, it's struggling financially, it's struggling as a consequence of this crisis, and it's specifically struggling with famine. So because it's difficult to get items into Gaza because of the crisis, I've pivoted and started this fundraiser for Yemen. So please go to the link in my bio, donate what you can. My goal is to raise as much as I can, hopefully $1 million soon. But try to give what you can to Yemen. Tell your friends. Yemen has been a great friend to Gaza. The Yemeni people need to be lauded. We've all said since the beginning, since day one of this crisis, where are the Arab countries? Why isn't anybody stepping up? Yemen has stepped up, and we have to reciprocate by giving to Yemen. So please go to the link in my bio and support Yemen. That's it. That's all I have for you guys. It's great to be back. My account's been, right now, it's working. It's functional. Inshallah, it'll remain functional, that I can continue to jump on here. And for me, in addition to giving you guys updates, I just love and miss the community that we've built since the beginning of this crisis, and a chance to see you guys all and speak to you all. Let me field a couple of questions right now. Let me see. Do you think? What do you think will be the outcome of the ICJ verdict? Will Israel lose, or will they simply use their connections and power to get away? From Fazi 10. Good question. Look, I'm skeptical because the ICJ is a political and legal arm of the EU, the United Nations, which we know generally is very pro-Israel. So I'm skeptical that a positive ruling will come out of that. However, they're judges. They're individual judges. They can rule apart and individually away from how governments. And if they're objective and neutral in assessing the facts and the merits of the case, look, you can't deny the fact that 30,000 people have been killed. You can't deny the fact that 90% of the people are displaced. You can't deny the fact that 50% of the population of Gaza are starving. You can't deny the fact that 85% of homes in northern Gaza have been destroyed. You can't deny the fact that the leadership of Israel, Netanyahu, specifically, have said very brazen things which are essentially open admissions of genocide and ethnic cleansing. So if these judges are good faith actors and assess the facts from an objective, neutral standpoint, then inshallah, God willing, justice can prevail. I'm skeptical because I'm not dumb and I know how the West functions and Western institutions function, but I'm also hopeful that there's good people sitting behind those judicial seats that will rule favorably. Are you still raising funds for Reem, the amputated child? Yes, I am. But as you guys know, I wasn't able to raise funds because my badges were disabled and I couldn't get on IG Live. So that's been stifled. Sadly, the fundraiser has been halted. But I'm still, inshallah, once this badges, I think badges are working now. So if you guys donate any badges on this IG Live, all of that will go to Reem and her family to, inshallah, help her with an amputated, get a prosthetic leg for her amputated leg. I'm still in communication with them. All of it's been stifled because IG Live has been disabled. But again, as long as this functions and you guys can give badges, all the badges will be donated to Reem. I did make contact with people at PCRF who help with this, but as you may or may not know, PCRF is going through a leadership transition. So I'm hoping to help people as best I can, especially people, young children like Reem who are in need of prosthetics because of amputated limbs. But it seems like badges are working now. So if you guys donate any badges, again, all of these badges will go to Reem. Thank you for that. I'm hoping the IG Live stays, right? I mean, it didn't work for 9 days. It was really frustrating for me, obviously. But, God willing, inshallah, in the coming days, it'll remain functional. And I'm going to try to jump on here as often as I can to provide you guys with to help with causes like Yemen and also to help with causes like young Reem. That's what's so frustrating me about the censorship is people really need this help, right? People really need, whether it's funds, resources to provide a prosthetic leg or medical emergency or food in Yemen. And when Meta and Instagram unilaterally decide to suspend accounts or disable accounts like mine, it has a real, for me, it's not a huge deal. I just lose access to my account. But for people who are in need of water, for people who are in need of food, for people who are in need of prosthetics for a leg, it has a direct impact on their lives. So for 10 days, I couldn't jump on IG Live. I'm not sure how much funds, but it's thousands of dollars that could have gone to this young girl's prosthetic leg. Instagram makes a unilateral decision to stifle and stop that. Has a real detrimental effect on a young 4-year-old girl and her family who are in need of a prosthetic leg. That just, it angers and frustrates me, but it just demonstrates how oftentimes these huge Fortune 50 companies like an Instagram and a Meta are just more concerned with protecting their brands than they are really, positively affecting people's lives. I can go on and on and on about that, but I'm going to stop there and field some more questions. But again, all badges are working for now. The badges that you give will go to Reem, the young girl, and her family. Let's see. Is it true? This is from Tabassum Iman. Is it true that the IOF is charging Gazans $7,000 to $12,000 USD to leave Gaza? I've read that, but I've also read something more frightening than that. You guys might have seen a couple of days ago that Netanyahu was talking to heads of several African nations, including Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda, I believe it was, those three nations, to take in Palestinians from Gaza, right, in large number. And what was uglier about that is that Israel would pay these countries per head, per refugee, per individual to leave Gaza. So the fact that there's Egypt as well, yes, that's true. They're transacting, they're contracting, they're essentially buying and selling refugees to leave Gaza, just shows how evil, vile, and destructive all of this is, right? So it's basically, the way you can think about it is financial ethnic cleansing. It's economic ethnic cleansing. It's almost kind of like, it has shades or parallels of slavery, because you're buying and selling bodies, not for the purposes of enslavement, but for the purposes of ethnic cleansing and genocide. So happening right now in real time, there's negotiations going on between Israel and various African and Arab countries to essentially sell Palestinian refugees as a form of economic and financial ethnic cleansing, which is ugly. And again, the fact that this is happening and nobody's stepping in, specifically the United Nations, just shows how dire a situation we're in, how vile a situation we're in, and a lot of this is curated by the United States being a global superpower. I just saw this. Is it human trafficking? You know, it isn't human trafficking in the traditional or classical sense, because human trafficking is typically a mode of it's an enterprise where bodies are sort of shipped, exported for the purposes of sexual exploitation or label exploitation. But it has shades. I mean, it has the colors of human trafficking, but it's geared specifically toward ethnic cleansing. And it's ugly and it's happening. And the fact that you can buy and sell refugees for the purposes of ethnic cleansing in 2024, in the 21st century, where we're allegedly in this moment of, intellectual, civilizational, and technological progress and enlightenment, just shows how backwards we actually are. Question. This is, I've seen critiques of people like you to this issue from other accounts. Yeah, I mean, look, I've been attacked by some people. I've been critiqued by a lot of people who say that me not being fully Palestinian or Palestinian, even though I have Palestinian ancestry in my lineage, should not be able to speak up. Look, I'll be honest with you. People can say what they want to say. I believe in full-fledged, unfettered freedom of speech. You can say what you want to say about me or anybody else. It doesn't really bother me. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. A lot of it comes from really young voices that I don't really pay a lot of mind or attention to be honest with you. Look, just as long as it's not slanderous and defamation, right? People can say what they want to say. I'm more concerned with speaking on what's happening on the ground. In Gaza. That's where my attention, speaking the truth and standing on the truth, all 10 toes, keep on speaking on it. You don't need anybody's validation or endorsement. I definitely don't feel like I need anybody's legitimacy or endorsement to speak on anything. If we stand for freedom extended and accepted for people you don't like. So yeah, I see the critiques of people like me, people I respect, people I admire. And it's just kind of part of the territory, to be honest with you. Individuals who are more concerned with toxicity, divide and conquer, don't got their eyes on the prize. And I don't belabor them. They're young people. They're struggling with things that young people struggle with. But what I would push all of you to do is to keep your eyes on the prize. Keep speaking on Gaza. Keep speaking on genocide. All these other trivial sort of beefs and battles don't mean anything, right? They don't mean anything. I think about them for 2 seconds and then move on to the news of the day, the important news of the day. One question before I got it. I'm back to teaching, guys, so I don't have the time that I had before. I'm teaching 2 classes this semester, so less time than I had before. Are any supplies making their way into Gaza? I don't know. I really don't know. It's hard to gauge. I read conflicting reports that there are some food trucks, that there are, some emergency trucks getting in, but not at a large number. You guys might have seen this video I posted last week. It was really heartbreaking, where there were some emergency aid trucks traveling through northern Gaza. They couldn't stop because they were fearing the possibility of being shot. So they were just throwing water, throwing food to Haram, the people in northern Gaza who are in need of those things. And it was really heartbreaking. It's one of the pinned videos on my page if you guys look at it. Really heartbreaking. So I don't know, to be honest with you, right? Part of me doesn't believe that the degree of humanitarian aid at this juncture, because the crisis is getting to the people who need it, because starvation is increasing in Gaza. And that's why I just want a ceasefire ASAP, because people need water, people need food, people need clothes. It's heartbreaking. So for me, I don't know. That's why I'm not fundraising for Gaza. I don't belabor or begrudge anybody who is, because people need it. That's why I'm fundraising for Yemen, because I know that we can get things into Yemen right now. The people in Yemen need it. People in Yemen deserve it, to be frank with you, for standing up for Gaza in ways that they have more than anybody else. Look, I'm half Lebanese, and the Lebanese people are standing in solidarity with Gaza, but not to the point or not to the extent of Yemen. And Yemen struggling with famine and poverty and everything else really deserve us to stand up in a serious way for them. I mean, I've never loved the Yemeni people more than I have these last 3 months. So again, whatever you can give, please go to the link in my bio and give to the Yemeni people as much as you can. They've been brave. They've been courageous. They haven't killed a single person. These Yemenis defending their coasts haven't killed a single person, right? All they're doing is making an economic stand to not let ships into there. So please give what you can give to the people of Yemen. I did see why do I not get angry? I do get angry, but I'm able to harness my anger. And, I think that for me, at least, this is all part, being a Muslim, this is all part of Allah's plan, God's plan. People go through struggle, people suffer. It's part of the injustices of the world, the injustices of the dunya. But inshallah, there's a greater prize waiting for the people who are struggling and suffering, the Palestinian people right now. And that keeps me consoled, and that keeps me heartened. And I always say this, I always raise up this quote. One of my heroes, Malcolm X, always said, knowledge is power, right? If you lead with intellect, right? If you lead with a strategic, cerebral, tempered mind, you will win. And winning looks different. For me, what winning means to me is mobilizing people, mobilizing supporters, mobilizing more voices for Palestine, because this is a long arc struggle. And knowledge is power, right? And knowledge is the enemy in the antithesis of anger. It's the antithesis of emotion. It's okay to have emotion fuel you. It's okay to have anger and frustration drive you. It's okay to have rage, justifiable rage, motivate what it is that you do, but it can't trump and supersede intellect. It can't do that. Knowledge has to be the primary power source. Malcolm X said it best, and he exemplified it. The reason Malcolm X is immortal and timeless in many respects is, think about a black Muslim man living in the United States in the 50s and the 60s, when blackness and Muslim identity were vilified, living and existing at that intersection that Malcolm X did. And whenever he faced the KKK or white supremacists or bigots in the media, that man was unflappable. That man was unshakable. That man was always tempered, controlled, and he dominated the room. So if he, a black Muslim man in the 50s and the 60s, can navigate his leadership in that way, then we have to rise to that. We have to rise to that example. We have so many models and examples where individual leaders, right, led with intellect. They led with strategy, right? They didn't let people anger them. They want to see us angry. They want to see us violent. They want to see us emotional. They want to see us raging out and saying bigoted things. They want to see us divide and conquer and fracture ourselves, right? They want to see us. They don't want Arabs and Muslims and minorities and black folk and brown people getting along in the name and for the sake of justice, right? They want to see that. But we have to fight against that. And once you step away from having your emotions dominate, your anger dominate what it is that you do, you realize that you hold the moral high ground. And once you hold the moral high ground, the next step is to curate and construe intellectual arguments that demonstrate that you're on the right side of this issue, the right side of genocide, and the right side of history. So I am angry, but I control it. I am frustrated, but I temper it. Because I have heroes like Edward Said and Malcolm X and the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him. So many people who are able to rise up and use their intellect to rise up to quash and suppress that emotion. So these young people who are emotional, angry, causing fracture and divide, it's part of being young. It's part of being young. They got to struggle. Up, keep on talking to your friends, your classmates, your colleagues. And also the last thing I want to say is find time to be joyful. Find time to do something that you love, whether it's working out, whether it's being with loved ones, whether it's going for a run or for a walk, right? Remember that in order for us to be committed to a long arced marathon of an issue, we have to find escapes and respites to remain human. So I'll come back soon, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Peace, and inshallah, we'll see you again soon. Salam.